Greetings, God's people, peace and blessings. This is God's servant here once more to share the word of the Lord. But before we do so, let's ask the Lord for His divine protection. Father in heaven, we thank you once more for your blessing. Thank you for your protection. Continue to lead the way and continue to guide and direct us. Let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in thy sight, O Lord, my strength and my Redeemer. Amen. Greetings, God's people. Peace and blessings. Topic of discussion is trust not in oppression. Trust not in oppression. Scripture of meditation is Psalm 62 verse 10. Trust not in oppression, and become not vain in robbery. If riches increase, set not your heart upon them. Oppression. I want to take a dictionary look at oppression and then get the biblical definition and get the biblical understanding of oppression. What is oppression? Oppression is the prolonged, cruel, or unjust treatment or control. Secondly, the state of being subject to unjust treatment or control, mental pressure or distress, unjust or cruel exercise of authority or power. When we look at these four definitions of oppression, we can summarize them by saying oppression is the unjust or cruel exercise of authority or power. And this authority or power can be on a small scale or on a wider scale as society. It can be an individual person, it can be persons, it can be an army, it can be a country, it can be, any way you want to put it, but it's just an unjust exercise of authority or power on a people or a set of people. But trust not in oppression, and become not vain in robbery. If riches increase, set not your heart upon them. So a lot of times oppression come when we look around in the world and see how oppression, people, different sector of society go through oppression. Sometimes material things play a great part in the oppression that people go through. Some people, work hard and still cannot see the benefit of their labor. Some people are oppressed by, people just looking on them and not liking them and just keep them down. So in our society today, there are so many examples of oppression. Satan is the master of deception, arch deceiver, accuser, and oppressor of God's people day and night. So Satan is the master of deception. He is the arch deceiver. He is the father of oppression. So when we look around and we see the oppression in the world, Satan is the master of this oppression. Ever since the war in heaven that was spoken of in Revelation 12 verse 7, 10 and 12, human beings have been Satan's number 2 enemy. So when we look on what's going on. When we check the scriptures, we can see a portion, or we can see a foundation where this oppression starts from. So in Revelation 12 verse 7, 10 and 12, it reads, "And there was war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon. And the dragon fought and his angels, and prevailed not, neither was their place found any more in heaven. And the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil and Satan, which deceiveth the whole world. He was cast out into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. And I heard a loud voice saying in heaven, Now is come salvation and strength, and the kingdom of our God, and the power of his Christ. For the accuser of our brethren is cast down, which accuseth them before our God day and night. Therefore rejoice, ye heavens, and ye that dwell in them. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and of the sea, for the devil is come down unto you, having great wrath, because he knoweth that he hath but a short time." So the devil, who is the father of oppression and depression, everything negative, is here causing mayhem on God's people. And he used human beings also who are willing to work for him to prolong his oppression. So woe to the inhabitants of the earth. Problem, mayhem, stress, distress, everywhere you can look. Oppression, depression, stress, problem, everything negative is upon God's people. But trust not in oppression. Don't be a part of oppression willfully. Sometimes you might step on somebody's toe without even knowing it. But if you realize that you are oppressing anyone, trust not in oppression. Don't be an oppressor to another human being. God is not the author of oppression. So you are really doing the devil's work by oppressing God's people. Oppression is very prevalent in our society today. And if we check deep into history, oppression is literally everywhere. So everywhere we look, you don't even have to look far to see oppression and hear the cries of the people every day. It's everywhere. People use their power and authority to keep the less fortunate under their feet. It is so easy to see oppression all around you. It could be a husband oppressing his wife. It could be a manager threatening his workers, or a bully harassing another child at school. So oppression is prevalent in every aspect of society, even in the family. A husband could be oppressing his wife. A wife could be oppressing her husband. A bully at school could be oppressing another child. So oppression is prevalent everywhere in our society. Oppression is everywhere, even though we know it's wrong, but still we live with it every day. So good and evil is everywhere. But the difference is that we have to make a choice between good and evil. So our choice is very vital in this oppressive society. We can choose to oppress God's people, or we can choose not to oppress God's people. Exodus 3 verse 9. Now therefore, behold, the cry of the children of Israel is come unto me, and I have also seen the oppression wherewith the Egyptians oppressed them. So, here in Exodus 3 verse 9, God's people were in Egypt, being oppressed by the Egyptians. On a daily basis, they cry night and day, they cry for deliverance, they cry for help. And when we look in society today, it's not anything new, because nothing is new under the sun. Everything what we see now happen in some form or shape already. So people been crying, but then people are still crying now. People are crying because of the oppression that the system put on the people on a daily basis. God's people cried night and day. But don't worry, God is still in control. Luke 11 verse 46. And he said, Woe unto you also, ye lawyers, for ye lay men with burden grievous to be borne, and you yourself touch not the burden with one of your fingers. So Luke is here specifically talking about lawyers, people in society, because sometimes based on their standing in society, they oppress people for monetary gain. So, as Luke rightfully put it, Woe unto you also, ye lawyers, for ye laid men with burden grievous to be borne. So sometimes you might have a situation, you have a case, and you get a lawyer, and you need help. You're desperate for help, and the lawyer put a price on you, but because of your desperation and what you're going through, you might have a loved one in some form of problem with the system and need help. But the lawyer put a big fee on you. Sometimes it's so stressing. Sometimes you have to borrow money. You have to, you have to do so many things. So with that pressure that you're under already, and the monetary pressure that the lawyer put on you, it's like double pressure. And all the lawyer sit down and do is right. And don't get me wrong, we are all in situations and we need an intercessor, early intercessor, so sometimes, the lawyer, help at times, because the lawyer study the laws of the land and, know the approach and the right way to bring the case. We might not be knowledgeable about, the system as much as the lawyer is knowledgeable. So I'm not saying that we're not to use a lawyer for a case, but Luke is here, drawing references to the evil liars who out there oppressing God's people. The rich and the powerful people in our world today take more for themselves at the expense of the poor. So you have people in our society right now, they live off the poor. They give less to the poor, but they take more from the poor. So they are a part of this oppressive system that's on the people on a daily basis. Being strong on an individual scale or having a big military to back your oppressive agenda allow the oppressor to trample on the needy without any regards. So because of the strength that the oppressor have, a lot of times the poor get trampled. No matter how much the poor cry, nobody basically is there to listen to the poor because of the strength that the oppressor have. Sometimes threats can put fear in a person's mind that they yield to the oppressor. That is mete out to them. So sometimes the oppressor, put fear in the people's heart. The oppressor threaten the people. And when we look around in society even today and see how much pressure the people are, undergoing on a daily basis. And it's out of fear because sometimes because of, your family and certain, you know, things that you have to carry on your back. Sometimes, you know, the pressure that the oppressor put on you, it's like your back is against the wall. You have to yield to his pressure. But just remember, in your oppressive time, God is still in control. God loves you. God is here for you. God will never leave us. God is our guide and our shield. God, the word of God is our strength on a daily basis. This is the only assurance we have, even in the oppressive time. Having a lot of power sometimes causes people to worship you, but all worship and praise should go to the Creator. So sometimes, because of the power and strength that the oppressor have, people bow down to the oppressor. People reverence the oppressor. Not because sometimes they want to, but when they think of the power and might that the oppressor have, people yield to the oppressor. Jeremiah 22 verse 3. Thus saith the Lord, execute your judgment and righteousness, and deliver the spoils out of the hands of the oppressor, and do no wrong, do no violence to the stranger, the fatherless, nor the widow, neither shed innocent blood in this place. So Jeremiah is here telling us, execute ye judgment and righteousness, and deliver the spoils out of the hands of the oppressor. So a lot of times the oppressor oppress the people materially. So Jeremiah is here saying, you know, take the spoils from the oppressor and share it to the poor, or telling the oppressor to share the spoils to the people. The people need help. The people need opportunity. Spread the love around. Spread the material things around so the people can have it. People are going through hardship and hard time, but sometimes the oppressors just keep everything for themselves and they will never share. Ezekiel 22 verse 29. The people of the land have used oppression and exercised robbery, and have vexed the poor and needy. Yea, they have oppressed the stranger wrongfully. So here again Ezekiel is saying, the people of the land have used oppression. So the rich, the powerful, not everyone that is rich and powerful use their power in a negative way, but a lot of people are in power. They use their power to keep the people down, oppress the needy, oppress the people on a daily basis. When people's heart is full of evil, they will use their power and influence to keep their oppressive thoughts and actions alive. So people use their power or influence society. They use their connections. They call their friends in higher places and set laws and rules into place that oppress the people. People sometimes feel like they don't have a choice in their life. They don't have a choice in what's going on. So the oppressor uses his power and connection to keep the people down, to keep them in a mindset of fear and frustration. So that negative energy, you know, they push it on a daily basis to keep the people down. This behavior will affect the weak, the poor, and the needy. Oppression opens the door to abuse, slavery, homelessness, and even death. So oppression opens the door for many other things. But God is not in oppression. God said to love your neighbor as yourself. So just as how you want good things for your life, you should always, pass on that good energy that someone out there can enjoy your life also. If the table should turn and the oppressor become the oppressed, they would feel helpless and empty. Oppression have been a problem in our society as long as you can look. People around the world protest every day about injustice and unfair treatment that the oppressor mete out. So everywhere you look on the news on a daily basis, you see protests there, protests everywhere. Everywhere you look around, people protesting. Why they protesting? Because of the injustice and the oppression that they feel on a daily basis. Psalm 103 verse 6. The Lord executed righteousness and judgment for all that are oppressed. So God's oppressive people are God's people who are under oppression. God will execute righteousness and judgment for all that are oppressed. God will always protect his people. Even though sometimes, you feel as if, there's no help. But help is here because God is always on time. God never late. Malachi 3 verse 5. And I will come near to you to judgment, and I will be a swift witness against the sorcerers, against the adulterers, against the false swearers, and against those that oppress the hireling in his wage, the widow and the fatherless, and that turn aside the stranger from his right, and fear not me, saith the Lord of hosts. So, nothing that's happening in this world, in this society, is not hidden from God. But God is here saying, I will be a swift witness against the sorcerers, against the adulterers, and those who oppress the hireling in his wage. So you have people, in society, and, they know that you worth more than what they are giving you, but because you are desperate and you need a job, you settle for basically nothing. So they are, they could do better in paying you, even though you sign for, whatever you sign for is what you get. But when you check it and see how the system really operates, you realize that they could be more generous to the poor and needy, because they have it in their corner where they could assist people more, but they are hunger for that oppressive power, and they use it to their advantage. Psalm 22 verse 16. He that oppresseth the poor to increase his riches, and he that giveth to the rich shall surely come to want. So, he that oppresseth the poor to increase his riches, and he that give to the rich shall surely come to want. So, the oppressors is only a matter of time. God will come with his righteous judgment and set the difference. There is limited thing that the oppressed can do in this modern society, and even society past long gone. People been crying night and day about the oppression that they are going through on a daily basis, and it's not hidden that you can't see it. Everywhere you look around, you can see the oppressive nature of society. But God is still in control, and God is still here for his people. Psalm 119 verse 134. Deliver me from the oppression of man, so will I keep thy precepts. Sometimes because of the oppression, people don't even want to call upon God. People think that there is no God. People think that the oppressor is the God. But don't be alarmed. God is still in control. Deliver me from the oppression of man. so will I keep thy precepts. So we are asking the Lord on a daily basis to deliver us so we can serve the Lord. Because sometimes, because of the oppression, you can't even get up and pray. You are so stressed out. You are so worried about the future. You are so worried about tomorrow. You worry about everything. You worry about the well-being of your family and everything. So on a daily basis, sometimes, people don't even want to call upon the Lord. They are so stressed. And this is the doing of the oppressor. It is very challenging and difficult to stop oppression because the devil is the master of oppression. So as long as the devil is running around, oppression will always be here. But God is in control. God is still the master. God is still the creator. And God is the one who is still looking out for his people. The voice of a people who are being oppressed go unheard many times because the system is built on that negative foundation. As God said in his word, if you are a lover of this world, you cannot be a lover of him, because the ways of the world, the ways of society is not always fashioned on the teachings and laws and foundation of the Lord. So a lot of time it seems like no one care about the oppressed. No one care about the problem that people go through. But God cares about his people in all time and season. Oppressors come and go, but their negative, oppressive energy remain the same. So oppressors born and die like everyone. But a lot of time they set laws into place for 100,000 of years that even people unborn, people who come in society 100,000 years after, still feel the effect of their evil doing in writings. They put things into law that sometimes won't come into effect for another 10 years, another 15 years, another year. So even though the oppressors die, but their oppressive energy and their oppressive work, their oppressive doings are still prevalent in society. The great God of creation doesn't promote oppression. He reminds us through his words, love your neighbors as yourselves, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. So God is not into oppression. God have told us in his commandments, love your neighbor as yourself, do unto others as you would have them done unto you. So if the oppressors were abiding by the will and teachings of the Lord, they would, throw away their oppressive nature, because God in his words have told us to love our neighbors, treat the other person as how you would have them treat you. So this oppressive system and oppressive ways would be thrown out. But the devil, who is the master of oppression, is leading these people and took over their minds and have them bent on material possession. So because of their material greed, they will always keep people in oppression. Proverbs 14 verse 31. He that oppresseth the poor reproacheth his maker, but he that honoureth him hath mercy on the poor. So Proverbs rightfully put it, he that oppresseth the poor reproacheth his maker. So in your oppressive system and your oppressive habits that you have on the people, you reproach it the maker. The maker is not happy with what you are doing. You might feel comfortable doing what you're doing, but the God of creation see what you are doing and he's not into it. But he that honoureth him hath mercy on the poor. So if God is in your heart, you will have mercy on the poor. You will not treat the fatherless in the way you are treating them. You will not treat the poor in society the way you are treating them. If the Maker is in your heart, you would have mercy on the poor. May we open our hearts to God, to His words, and live by them. Not only just studying them, but study them and live by them. And be not part of this oppressive system that's oppressing the poor. There is so much oppression around. People cry night and day. But let's be a part of the mercy and love and care that we all need. Let's do unto others as we would have them done unto us. Let the words of my mouth and the meditation of my heart be acceptable in thy sight, O Lord, my strength and my Redeemer. Peace and blessings, God's people, and may God continue to bless us. May God continue to give us the strength we need to stand up in these last days. Peace and blessings, God's people.